The sun was just beginning its slow descent behind the dusty skyline of Ouagadougou, casting long shadows over the bustling streets of Burkina Faso's capital. The air was thick with the scent of warm earth, mixed with the faint aroma of cooking, fires and distant exhaust from rickety motorcycles weaving through the traffic. Street vendors packed up their wares as the golden hour stretched, turning the city into a glowing sea of amber and ochre. Ibrahim Traoré walked quietly, his boots making soft crunching sounds on the cracked pavement. The weight of the day lingered on his broad shoulders, but today, unlike many others, there was a heaviness deep within, a quiet weariness not born of fatigue, but of a soul worn thin by unspoken battles. The heat clung to his skin, yet a chill trembled beneath his ribs. His eyes, sharp and steady, scanned the throngs of people, many faces blurred by distance, some sharply etched by hardship and hope alike. Ibrahim's thoughts drifted back to his childhood days in a small village, to a man who had quietly shaped the man he had become. His former teacher, Monsieur Camara. Ibrahim had not seen Monsieur Camara for years, not since the violent upheavals that had torn apart communities and forced so many to flee, scatter, or disappear. That quiet voice of wisdom, patience, and fierce kindness had been a beacon in his turbulent youth. But the world changed, and people changed too. The streets grew noisier as children chased a worn football, their laughter ringing out like distant bells. Women balanced baskets on their heads, negotiating prices with tired smiles. Ibrahim paused, his gaze catching sight of a frail figure huddled near a crumbling wall, wrapped in a faded shawl that barely shielded her from the early evening breeze. Something inside him tightened. There, hunched and alone, was a woman whose face mirrored the years lost but whose eyes still held a spark that stirred memories and unearthed old wounds. It was her, Monsieur Camara. She looked smaller, diminished by time and hardship. The man who once stood tall in a classroom, full of eager children, now seemed almost invisible to the world around her, a shadow fading at the edges. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched a torn book, its pages dog-eared and worn as if it were the last fragment of a forgotten past. Ibrahim's heart constricted. The memories flooded, his childhood struggles, the lessons of hope and resilience, the sacrifices made so that others might learn and grow. But life had dealt them both cruel cards. The teacher who had given him so much was now struggling in ways he had never imagined. He stepped closer, the gravel crunching beneath his boots, announcing his presence. The frail woman looked up, her eyes wide with disbelief, then softened with recognition. "Ibrahim," she whispered, her voice cracked but warm, like a dry riverbed suddenly touched by rain. "I am here, sir," Ibrahim said softly, kneeling, down to meet her gaze. "You taught me to believe even when the world told me to give up." Tears welled in her eyes. "And you became the man I always hoped you would." Around them, the city continued its frenetic pace, but in this small moment, time slowed. Two souls connected. One, a leader hardened by battle and burden. The other, a teacher weathered but still full of quiet dignity. "I should have found you sooner," Ibrahim murmured, his voice thick. "Why have you been out here all this time?" She glanced toward the darkening streets, then back to him. "Life. It is not kind to those who give without asking in return. I lost everything. The school closed, the children left, and my health betrayed me. But I never lost hope." A sudden gust swept through the alley, lifting loose papers and whispers of a forgotten past. Ibrahim reached into his pocket, pulling out a small stone, smooth and worn. "Do you remember this?" She smiled faintly, recognition lighting her eyes. "Our lucky stone. You carried it every day." "I still do," he said. "And I promise you, I will carry you forward now." In that instant, a powerful resolve took root in Ibrahim's heart. This encounter was more than a reunion. It was a call to restore what was lost, to heal wounds both personal and national. For the teacher who shaped him had become a symbol, not of defeat, but of enduring strength. As twilight deepened and the city lights blinked awake, Ibrahim helped Monsieur Camara to her feet. Together they stepped forward, two souls bound by history, hope and the promise of tomorrow. The following days weighed heavily on Ibrahim's mind, the image of Monsieur Kamara's frail figure, the threadbare shawl that failed to protect her from the chill, haunted him. It was more than a chance encounter. It was a mirror held up to the neglected corners of his country, the forgotten dreams crushed by war and poverty. At the presidential residence, his closest advisors noticed the unusual quiet in Ibrahim's demeanor. He sat in his office, staring not at the reports on his desk, but at the small stone he had carried since childhood. It was a reminder of resilience, a talisman of hope. He called a meeting, not of generals or ministers, but of educators, community, leaders, and activists. His voice was firm but tinged with urgency. We cannot build a nation on military strength alone. Education is the foundation, the future. We must reclaim our schools, restore dignity to our teachers, and bring hope to our children. The room buzzed with energy as plans took shape, repairing, crumbling classrooms providing resources for teachers, reopening schools in rural villages ravaged by conflict. Ibrahim pledged government funding and called upon citizens to unite behind this cause. Meanwhile, he sought out Monsieur Kamara again. Together, they visited the derelict school buildings in the neighborhood, the once bright classrooms, now silent and empty, echoed with the ghosts of laughter and learning. Monsieur Kamara's eyes shimmered with tears but also fierce determination. "This school was my life," she said. "If we can bring it back, we can bring back more than bricks and mortar. We can bring back hope." Word spread quickly. The people rallied. Volunteers came forward, bringing paint, tools, and hope. Young and old worked side by side, cleaning, repairing, rebuilding. The community began to heal, stitch by stitch. Ibrahim often stood at the edge of the crowd watching, sometimes lending a hand but always listening. He knew the road ahead was long and fraught with challenges, but the spark of change was real. One afternoon, as the sun warmed the fresh paint on the school walls, a small boy approached Ibrahim shyly. In his hands was a fragile paper, a drawing of a stone, a perfect replica of the one Ibrahim carried. "You carry hope," the boy said simply. Ibrahim knelt, eyes glistening. "And you, my son, carry the future." Months passed, and the school reopened with a ceremony filled with tears, laughter, and song. Children streamed through the doors, their eyes bright with curiosity and promise. Monsieur Kamara stood proudly, a teacher once again. One evening, Ibrahim walked the streets alone, reflecting on the transformation, not just of the school or the community, but within himself. The meeting with his former teacher had stirred something deep, a renewal of faith in the power of small acts to change the course of a nation. He found himself by the same wall where he had first seen her months ago. There waiting was Monsieur Kamara, holding the same worn book and wrapped now in a new shawl given by grateful students. She smiled softly. "Thank you, Ibrahim. You gave me back my dignity." He shook his head gently. "No, you gave it to me by teaching me that even in broken places something beautiful can grow." They stood side by side as dawn crept over Ouagadougou. The sky was painted in shades of pink and gold, an emblem of hope and new beginnings. "You're not broken," Ibrahim said quietly. "You're becoming." Monsieur Kamara reached out and squeezed his hand. "And so are we all." If this story touched your heart, consider subscribing for more inspiring tales of hope, healing, and unexpected kindness. Hit the like button and share this with someone who needs it today.